especially with Spirit of Matter, in your monthly horoscope for ascendant, sun, moon, or stellium in Sagittarius. This is Mercury Day, Saturn hour, and Saturn ruling the midheaven 23 Capricorn. We're gonna have a Mercury retrograde in about a week from now. The ascendant is ruled by Venus, with Venus in the seventh house at this time of the recording in Scorpio, and is right on Jupiter and Jupiter retrograde. Jupiter is the ruler of your ascendant. And so, even though December started, I said I'm going to finish up with the recording of the horoscopes. So the month for you, let's take a look at the main events that we are discussing. Just before that, the moon is in 27 degrees Virgo. Okay. Sun in Sagittarius. So let's take a look at the main event for this month and how they express themselves into your chart. Okay, if you have ascendant Sagittarius, or it's going to be the houses from your sun, the houses from your moon, or if you have a couple of planets in Sagittarius, then the houses from Sagittarius. So the main events for the lunations, but before even the lunations, okay, we had Neptune turning direct today. I had a separate video on this. So Neptune is turning direct in Pisces. Pisces is your fourth house. And fourth house Pisces, with Neptune there, it can be something connected to your elders, something connected to your home, your family life, something connected to housing per se, whether it is about corruption, about liquidity, the liquidity to buy an asset, because Neptune rules liquidity, and there's a co-presence with Saturn. The ruler Jupiter is in Taurus, so yes, let's take a look at this Neptune direct, the direct chart, which was today. And for you, Taurus is in the sixth house. So the ruler is in the sixth house. And so perhaps you're thinking about getting a new home for like your pet, or maybe you are sick and you need a new home because of that. Or something in the family changes, or somebody in the family dealing with addiction. Neptune going direct is about proceeding in with the reflections, because the ruler Jupiter is still retrograde, around home, housing, crime, okay, health, your health, how your home is connected with your health, and that's probably one of the products that I'm going to offer, is such consultations, because this is something that's growing as a path for me. And so the home that you're living in is connected with your health, but also is connected with your chart. What for one person would be unhealthy, for another person, it can even be remediation. So you might be thinking about such things, and how is the home that I'm living in connected with my physical health, with my health, and also how with my physical health. If I take care of my physical health and I take care of my home, and this comes together, okay, more healthy, more able to take care of the house and so on. If it is work, then you might have a connection between work and your home life, or your foundations as well. So this is Neptune, and that's the first one. The second one is going to be yet another thing that turns direct. I'm going to talk about Chiron. So Chiron, if we take a look at when is it going direct, this happens in, yes, Chiron. December 27. Okay, and then Jupiter will be going direct in December 31. So before we talk about the Mercury retrograde, let's talk about Chiron, because for you, Chiron is in Aries, which is in the 5th house. And what is Chiron? You can watch my video about Chiron. I don't know for how long it will be available, because this may be something that I eventually will do a paid lectures about. But now you can watch it for free and take advantage of the time when it is free. Chiron turning direct in your 5th house. Chiron is about your ability to do something yourself, whether it's a creative project, or to assert yourself as the I am, or to do your hobby. It may be a hobby that you cannot do, or there's a limitation about this, or it can be to do with fertility, with romantic relations before you get committed. If you depend, even if the style of commitment is non-monogamous, okay, you still have 7th house, okay, it's still committing, it's just non-monogamous committing. So these relationships, when you are just dating someone, is the 5th house. And Chiron going through this might mean that there can be a difficulty in being you in your romantic dating, in the dating world, simply per se. Okay, you can kind of feel like, oh, if I say who I really am, then either I get rejected, or people don't want to date me because of like weird stuff that's going on in the world. If for example, with COVID, people were dating according if a person is vaccinated or not vaccinated. Stuff like that could be affecting your dating life. If it is a child, then it could be that the child or your relations with the child are experiencing some sort of wounding, and that pertains to the child's ability to be who they are. So this is where you also have to be more inclusive. Your Aries house right now, because of Aries in Aries, you have to be more inclusive. And with Chiron, there is some sort of a wound around being inclusive. Okay, so let's say you were hurt by someone who was gay in your childhood, and now your child is gay. Okay, now of course rationally it does, like what's one thing with another, but people tend to have traumas associated and have markers associated with something that reminds them of the place that they were hurt. And so your child could be reminding you of a wound around identity, and that can make it difficult for you to just let your child be who they are. With Aries, we assert ourselves in the world. So it can be a hobby that you have, a romantic relation that you have, a relation with the child, or the experience of the child or the romantic partner in your life, that doing them with you or doing them in the world, even if you do support them, is more difficult than the difficulty that Aries brings just by it being a Mars sign. Okay. Chiron going direct here may mean you have reflected on the source of difficulty, on the wound, and there can be ability to move forward another step in this process. Okay. And so you have ability to move forward another step, and this is actually going to bring about tackling the wound of when you are more informed that this is happening. Now, because it matters if the moon is triggering Chiron in a hard aspect, or if something is crossing this Chiron in a hard aspect or a harmonious aspect, you may still have some things that are going to feel like, ouch, whenever something crosses it in a hard aspect. But when the more harmonious aspects come, you can see also the cure. You can see also where, and the cure is not necessarily about suddenly being able to do it. It can also be about radical self-acceptance that makes you okay with you, even when you are not able to do what you wanted to do, or not able at the moment. Okay, because you need to strike a new path with Aries, And here there's a wound to doing just that. So this is also where the I am collides with other I ams. Okay, somebody on a mundane level, we see it as nationalities, and people's self-determination begin to collide with each other. But on a personal level, this is where identities can clash in the situation. Okay, for example, the fact that they say, I am Me Too veteran, it clashes with the identity of the person who might not want to see themselves as perpetrator, but they were violating my boundaries. Okay, and so, or when a person say, I am a war veteran, and some other, so the other side might see him as terrorist, as oppressor. And so this is also where identities do genuinely clash. And we need to hold a place of compassion for this, because this is where everybody's right. Okay, everybody has the right to self-determination. Everybody's right. So yeah. The next one is Jupiter. And Jupiter on the 31st of December, Jupiter is going direct in Taurus in your sixth house. This is where you're going to see the culminating results of both the turning direct of Saturn and of Neptune. Because Jupiter was retrograde for the time that Saturn stationed direct and for the time that Neptune stationed direct. And Jupiter rules not just your first house, where Mars and the Sun are right now at the time of the recording, but also your Pisces house, which is your fourth house. So, whatever things you are considering, when I talked about Neptune retrograde and Saturn retrograde, if there are issues around death as well, or you recently experienced this, or something came up around this, then there's some sort of a thought about the connection between this and your physical health, and the connection between this and your enemies at work, or at what you do for a living, or if you have employees. You can suddenly see how things kind of correlate on a more holistic level. And when Jupiter is going direct, you will change your something will change around us. You will change your worldview. Basically, with Jupiter is when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So right now you're busy changing the way you look at things. Okay, it's not just the luminaries, it's also Jupiter is the worldview, is the philosophy of life and religion. So you learn more about the religions, the beliefs, the philosophies that comprise your health, and how they are to do with your upbringing or with your ancestors. Let's say you had an ancestor that was a Mason and they had to curse a part of their body to get a certain rank. Then you see how this is affecting the family health, because now you're dealing with the health problem that was caused by your father, your mother, your ancestors, because of some religion that they were in. Or let's say you were born in a place where genitalia mutilation is practiced as some sort of religious something. So whether it is a penis or not, then you might have this. You might be born in a family where, and you might think about, how does this affect my health holistically? I'm living in Israel, and in Israel there are many Jews. I think also Muslims practice this, and some of them practice this for women. And so a lot of women begin to think, okay, how is my pleasure life, but also how is my endocrine system, how is my menstruation, how is my experience of birthing changing, because this thing exists in my family. And there is also a movement in Africa that is to end this practice with women. And when it comes to men, I know in Israel there's a movement to end this practice also with Jews, because it affects psychologically, it affects in terms of the health, okay? It's something that God agreed to because he was asked by Abraham, before he was Abraham, to have a sort of symbol on the physical body for the connection with the Lord. And the Lord eventually agreed to this, because previously people would sacrifice people, they would sacrifice children. This is why the connection, the initial connection, when God connected Abraham, he said, take your child and sacrifice to me. And Abraham knew that this is God speaking to him, or divinity speaking to him, because he was asked to do child sacrifice, which was practiced at the time. Okay, and so now we get the context historically for why Abraham was arguing with God, where God said later, stop this, don't do this, sacrifice an animal instead. And also he said to eat from the sacrifice. Okay, if you sacrifice to slaughter an animal, then eat from this, don't waste this life. And I think only one sacrifice is that you don't eat from. And Abraham demanded something of a physical connection, and then God agreed to have circumcision. But that's the only thing that the God agreed, and it was not coming from God in as much as it was coming from Abraham, so that he will have this physical connection with God, because God did not agree not to build a statue, not to build a picture, not to do anything that was practiced, not to do any physical reminder of divinity. Okay, so that the connection between the people and the Lord would be as personal as possible. No need to sacrifice people, no need to do body mutilation, no need to do special statues, no need to do all of these things, because what does this allow? It allows for more equity in the face of divinity. Okay, for example, if you cannot buy, I don't know, the cat statue for Bastet, or if you cannot buy the picture of the deity, of something like this, then you're not deprived of divinity. This is the principle for the gods that says you don't want to do these things. Now, some of this may have been affecting you. It can be that in your family life, in your ancestors, somebody practiced child sacrifice, blood sacrifice. Okay, only today I discovered Aleister Crowley's blood hierarchy, when he talks about preparing like a sacrifice and consuming bodily fluids. Then in the hierarchy there was the blood of a child. How are you to obtain the blood of a child? Okay, this is a problem, right? We're not supposed to obtain the blood of a child. The blood of your enemy. Yes, it means that you need to, but there are many ways to treat enemy. Procyon, for example, is about sweetening. Not all the time to have to kill the enemy. It's supposed to be very rarely that you actually have to do, to kill those who come to kill you. And he talks about menstrual blood as well, but I think he's also alluding to blood of ritual sacrifice, and all these things that are done as ritual sacrifice may have been happening in your family, and instead of using like hibiscus flower instead of blood, then actual blood and actual crime was atrocities towards children, towards women, towards men, were performed for the sake of the ritual of coming closer to God and so on, or to divine, or to the creator of worlds, or whatnot. And if this is happening in your family, or was happening in your family, this may affect you. Okay, so you could, for example, do something, a ritual where you put, let's say, hibiscus instead, or you pray to the divinity that you know instead, or you just abolish this practice, or you just become aware that that had affected your upbringing, and this is affecting your physical health today. So there are things that you can change about this, or tend to this, or maybe inform, or now you have a teaching, and that can be very, very useful to know these things. Okay, with Neptune, there's something that can be of liquid form. to do with religion as well. Not necessarily blood, but or certain drugs or something like this, and how it's affecting your health. So this is Jupiter going direct. Okay, it's bringing some sort of an abundance in the form of a teaching. It's going to increase your health issues as well, but then also the solutions to these. Okay, if there is something growing, like a tumor growing in your body, then you might want to tend to this, and also be cautious when you check for things, because if you go to check something like this, know that there is an economy to your diagnosis. Okay, some diagnosis you will get insurance for, so they would say, for example, if something is not cancer, that is cancer, so that you will get your insurance and the procedure will be. But there can also be misdiagnosis, and there can also be the using of the light, of the laser, to create cancer cells. So if this is the case, I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I want you to at least be informed of some things that are a part of the medical field. Now let's talk about Mercury, because Mercury is going retrograde quite soon for you. It's going retrograde in Capricorn. So Mercury, yes, Mercury turns retrograde December 13. And this one is with 8 degrees Capricorn. This is the second house, with Saturn in Pisces, which is your fourth house, and is co-present with Pluto. That's going to reach the anaretic degree eventually of Capricorn. Mercury is going to return to your first house and then go back again to your second. So now you want to think about, if your second, the ruler of your second is now transiting through your fourth. If there is a family issue of debt, of taxes, of mortgage, of inheritance, although inheritance is 8th house, Saturn is about long-term things and money and stocks. So if there is, or assets, okay, now it's time to check for everything, for the papers, for recovering these documents, for making sure that your self-interest is there, that your assets are not lost, or some of the assets can be lost, okay? And here in particular, it can be an issue because this is a house, it pertains to your house. It can be somebody in your house that can have some loss, or alternatively, you're having some loss over your property. So please check everything, okay? Check everything, make donations for housing for people, to the people, not to funds, to people. Make sure that you're attending to the issue of housing, because Saturn is about accumulating action. If you've been the type of person that was okay with some people not having a house, or thinking it's justified, or whatever opinion you had of like homeless people or something like this, please make sure that you do yourself a reality check, because Saturn is also about accumulating karma. Okay, is accumulating karma, and this is where you want to be kind of extra cautious and check everything, double check your words, double check your contracts, as well as double check how is your assets, or the lack of, connected to your ancestors, and to things that run or don't run in the family, and make sure that what is your property, what is your assets, even if you have lost it, you are keeping track of things, that you know more or less where you stand. This is what the Mercury retrograde is going to be about, because all of these issues are still affecting indirectly your health or your work. Okay, so make sure that you go over the things, If you need to sign something, to renew something, then this is also a time where you can go over this. Okay. So now another thing we have is the ingresses. Venus has already entered Scorpio on December 4th, which is your 12th house, and on December 9th, she's going to go to your first house. So Venus in your 12th house is all the things that Venus signifies. Secret affairs, lovers that may or may not have your best interest in heart, some a friend or spouse or sister or neighbor that is going through a 12th house experience, okay, some sort of loss, isolation, or hospitalization, hopefully not jailing or hospitalization, but yes, or exile. So this can be affecting your physical health as well, and this can be affecting like somebody from your groups or your social groups, okay? You can have a little bit of a hidden enemy either from work or romantic relations, especially if it's someone you met at the conference or your colleagues. They could be hidden. What happens with the 12 houses is this is your blind spot. So somebody might be feeling, someone Venusian might be feeling unseen by you. And if this is the case, then they can have, their feelings are running deep. So within whichever you can, it's more difficult to tend to things of the 12th. Mars is in your first house, so you can feel some of that. Pay attention to your dreams. If somebody tries to project themselves to your energy, pay attention to this. Learn about setting energy boundaries and working with your, if you have nightmares, working with your dream state, because this is affecting like your path, your physicality right now. So, and as Venus ingresses into your first house, is actually where you get all the goodies. Okay, the abundance of Venus, the relations, the connection, the sweet time, learning, because learning, philosophizing about love, about connections, now become a part of kind of like your life path, and also the pleasures of the body. Yes, it's also a part of what Venus will do in your first house. So we covered the ingresses. We covered the Mercury retrograde. Now we got the lunations. So December 13th, we have a new moon in your first house. And this is a new beginning in your first house. Now, what you must take into consideration is that there is also, at the context of this, the square to Neptune. And so, which later Mars will square. Mars is in your first house. So if you're a day chart, then Mars can be like accident prone or do some conflicts that are annoying to you. But if it is a night chart, then Mars can just be something that is unpleasant but is not a conflict, or it can be drive and passion as well. It's not just bad things. But the new lunation that is in orb to be square in Neptune means that there is a consciousness crisis. Because if we talked about Jupiter as when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Right now, there is a crisis about how to look at things, because the angle from which you are seeing the world, or whatever it is that you're looking at, even yourself, is at this very point in time delusional. You might be highly optimistic or highly idealistic, or also highly desperate or helpless, which gives you a point of view or an outlook that is not realistic as to how things are. There can be a sense of of kind of a loss around this, or the music that you hear, or the philosophy that you ascribe to, or the journeys that you wish to undertake, can indeed be affected. And this crisis is between you and your home life, with you and your home. So this is transient, but because this is the new moon, it begins a cycle of kind of like 6 months or a year. And this, want to think about it as a fuga. This is one voice in the fuga. It's not the entire fuga. It's not going to be your entire 6 months, but this is some issue that you're going to be dealing with in the 6 months. And remember that the moon will cross over and reach harmonious balance with Neptune, and get out of it and reach it and get out of it throughout the month. So you get to see the more emotionally safe way to deal with this, but it's just a new cycle that is opening with a certain sense of lack of clarity. Okay, now Cancer and Leo for you are the 8th and 9th house. So your worldview and your outlook, and again, something to do with what you swipe under the rug, or some very intimate shared assets type of connection that you have. And so again, there can be some losses regarding to this. It's not going to be your entire life, but it's something that's a part of life. 27th of December, we also have, with the Chiron turning direct, we also have the full moon in Cancer. 4 degrees Cancer next to vertex, so it can add a little bit of a fated flavor. Okay, vertex going over the point of the full lunation can add another fated flavor to this lunation. And this is your 2nd and 8th house. Mercury is retrograde, so you discover things that have to do with your inheritance, the will of people, some ancestral trauma. And with Cancer, it's to do with the levels of nourishment, care, real estate. And it's a revelation, because this is a new moon, so new light is shed on the topic, which will allow you to process things and see how you proceed from there, or to let go of something in regarding to it, whether it's a baggage that you have, or some assets that you thought you have as well. Okay, so emotional baggage or actual baggage. And this is the month for you, pretty much. Yes, this is what we have. So all in all, yes, there is a sense, because your 8th house is pinpointed, and because of the square with Neptune, then yes, there is this heaviness, but it's really not that heavy. Okay, not that what you're going through is not that heavy. The month itself is really not as heavy as we've had in previous months. Okay, the sun is in your 1st house. You are rejuvenated, you get confidence, you get the shine. It's the month of your birthday. And if it is the sun, okay, if it is the ascendant and you have a sun in another place, then yes, depending on where the sun is. But all in all, it really is not that heavy. Okay, and what you're releasing now, your loss could be your win. Your loss could be your relief, your health, your well-being. So things are going to go most smoothly, even when they are bumpy. And the communication that you have while you need to tend to it, you will be very joyous that you have tended to it when you did. So that's it. This is for you. And have happy holidays.